You're scrolling through endless monitor options, wondering if you're about to drop a serious chunk of cash on something that will end up collecting dust. It's a legitimate worry, especially when a monitor promises 4K resolution, a 240Hz refresh rate and a curved gold panel all in one package. You want to know whether that combination actually translates into a smoother, more immersive experience for the games you play, the movies you binge, and the occasional work sprint, or if you're just paying for hype. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through what the Dell Alienware AW3225QF actually feels like once you unbox it, mount it on your desk, and start using it day in, day out. I've spent a solid few weeks running a mix of fast-paced shooters, open-world adventures, and even a little graphic design work to see where the monitor shines and where it might leave you reaching for the settings menu. First off, the size. A 31.6-inch screen hits that sweet spot between being large enough to fill your peripheral vision and small enough to keep you from constantly turning your head. The 1500R curvature is subtle but noticeable. It nudges the edges of the display toward you just enough that you feel a little more enveloped without the distortion you sometimes get on aggressively curved panels. In practice, that curvature makes long gaming sessions feel less taxing on the neck, and it also gives a slight sense of depth when you're navigating a dense cityscape in a game like Cyberpunk 2077. The curve isn't so extreme that it messes with desktop work. Icons stay square and text stays crisp. Resolution is 3840x2160, so you're getting true 4K detail. That means you can see individual blades on a helicopter rotor or the fine grain of sand in a desert level without having to lean in. In a typical 1080 Ponley setup, you'd often need to sit closer to the monitor to appreciate that level of detail, which can lead to eye strain. Here, the pixel density is high enough that you can sit at a comfortable 3-foot distance and still read small UI elements without squinting. Now, the 240Hz refresh rate paired with a 0.03 milliseconds response time is where the gaming claim gets put to the test. In fast shooters like Valorant or Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, the difference is tangible. When you enable the highest refresh setting and pair it with a GPU that can push 200+ FPS, you notice the motion feels buttery smooth. Enemies don't blur as you swivel, and the recoil animations are crisp enough that you can visually track a spray pattern more accurately. The monitor's G-Sync compatibility further smooths out any framerate hiccups by synchronizing the display's refresh to the GPU's output, which eliminates the tearing that can be distracting in competitive play. That said, you'll need a fairly recent graphics card to actually reap the 240Hz benefit at 4K. If you're still on a mid-range GPU from a couple of generations ago, you'll likely be capped well below the monitor's max refresh, and the extra bandwidth will feel underutilized. In that scenario, you still get the visual fidelity of 4K, but the ultra-smooth claim becomes more marketing than reality. The gold panel is the standout tech here. Quantum dot color enhancement combined with OLED self-emissive pixels results in deep blacks and vivid colors that feel more lifelike than a standard IPS panel. When you fire up a cinematic RPG like Elden Ring, the shadows hold true black without any gray washout, and the foliage pops with a richness that makes the world feel more immersive. For content creators who dabble in color-critical work, the panel delivers a wide gamut that can be useful for rough grading, although you'll still want a calibrated monitor for professional work. One practical strength of the Alienware model is its connectivity. It offers both HDMI 2.1 and DisplayPort 1.4, so you can hook up the latest consoles at 4K 120Hz or connect a high-end PC with a single DisplayPort cable. The HDMI 2.1 port also carries audio, so if you're using a soundbar or a TiVo-style receiver, you can keep the cable count low. The monitor includes a VESA-compatible mount pattern, 100,100mm, and a fairly generous ergonomic stand that lets you tilt, swivel, and adjust height. In my setup, I lowered the monitor just enough to line the top edge with my eye level, which helped reduce neck strain during marathon sessions. On the flip side, there are a couple of trade-offs you should be aware of. OLED panels, even the newer gold variants, are prone to image retention if static UI elements stay on screen for extended periods. I noticed a faint ghost of the health bar after leaving a game paused for an hour, though it faded after a few minutes of regular content. If your workflow involves static HUDs, spreadsheets, or coding IDEs for many hours at a stretch, you might want to enable a pixel shift feature or take occasional breaks to mitigate that risk. Another practical consideration is power consumption and heat. The 31-inch OLED screen draws more power than a typical LED IPS monitor, especially when you crank up the brightness.